Yo guys, and welcome back for another Blue Protocol Star Resonance video. So today we're going to be talking about a guide for everything you kind of need to know about the Moonstrike class for the Thunderblade. So I refer to this as my Moonblade class. Hopefully this will be an all-encompassing guide of all the important things you need to know. There is more than what we just go over here, and there's more detail that you can go into and learn more about on your own, looking at your talents and things like that. But this video is going to cover hopefully everything important that you realistically need to know and can utilize to your own advantage to try and min-max things like your imagines, your skills, your just overall investment in your character. And so hopefully this will be a good place for you guys to start. And like I say with every guide, guides are just a place to get started, right? Think of this as your starting point. From here, you'll learn about the class, and then you can tailor it a little bit to yourself more via your talents or your gameplay, etc., to kind of see and feel what ultimately is the best for you. Don't think of any guide as the only way to play whatever class you're playing in any MMO. It doesn't have to be just Blue Protocol. Think of them, as I said, just as the starting line. Okay, so if you guys have seen my videos, you probably know that this is my main character for Blue Protocol Star Resonance. So this is my Moonblade right here, and I like this class a lot. I've talked about it in several other videos. You probably heard me talk about it online as well, but I like it for a couple of different reasons. It does really good damage, it's pretty easy to play, and it doesn't have any issues where, you know, if you miss timing or something like that, it's a big deal. Now in season 2 it's a little bit different. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's more of a gearing issue. So it doesn't really have a lot of requirements from you as the player, and so I can be looking over at chat and not have to worry about it, and I can still be, you know, kind of not really paying attention and still doing pretty good damage. And so really I just need to be paying attention for like boss mechanics and stuff like that. So it kind of frees me up for other things, whether it be paying attention to the mobs around me or the boss mechanics or reading chat, right? All those different things are just different reasons why I like this class. And again, it is that very spam, very fast feeling class, and it feels really nice to play. On top of that, the visuals, I think, of this class are actually pretty good. I would say top notch in terms of the classes for Blue Protocol Star Resonance. And I mean, at the end of the day, you got this nice looking sword, right? The class is really good damage. It feels really good. It's spammy, and you can also use your, you know, mental capacity for other things instead of just having to focus on your DPS rotation. Guys, one thing we need to talk about though, understanding your class in any MMO or any game is going to help you have the right expectations. This class is not an AoE king. It is not a burst damage king. This class is a consistent damage, regular size mob packs, boss damage kind of class. And that's kind of where this is going to succeed. It has plenty of AoE and has the ability to do AoE damage, definitely, but it's not going to be an infinite scaler like an Ice Mage. So if you don't know what it means to infinitely scale, the way that our class works, or the way that Thunderblades work in general, is that with more mobs, with infinite number of mobs, you will actually do less damage per hit across all the different mobs. So you will technically hit them, so there's not like an actual AoE cap, but there is like a damage like ceiling, I guess you could say, across a larger AoE. Other classes like Skyward Wind Knight, for example, or Frostbeam Ice Mage, for example, when they hit an AoE group, it doesn't matter how many mobs there are, they'll do the same damage to every single mob in the group. And so this is not an AoE infinitely scaling class. It has diminishing returns with higher packs of mobs. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the important pieces on our UI already here. So what you can see right here is we have our blade intent. So this is the big energy that we're going to be using, and it is pretty important. We're going to be constantly depleting and refilling this. It's a big part of how the class works, and part of the reason why luck is so important in season 2. Less important in season 1, but it's still pretty important there as well. So you will always pretty much need a pretty high amount of luck for it to feel good, and without that luck, you will be feeling a lot worse, especially in season season 2. Not as horrible, I feel like, in season 1. Yeah, we'll get more into that in a second. And then we also have our thunder sigils. So our thunder sigils are going to be, they're still relatively important, but they're not as important to Moonstrike as it is in the other class. And then additionally, we're going to be having a counter over here that's going to be counting our seeds. Our seeds are going to be how we actually are going to be doing a big portion of our damage. So if we look at our skills, I would say the most important two are going to be our basic attack, because that's going to upgrade our divine scythe, and then our thunder cut, which is the other big portion of our damage. Now, our damage is probably, you know, I haven't actually looked at the true DPS split of this, but if I had to give it a guess, I would say these two skills alone are going to end up being maybe like 70 or 80% of our overall damage. Now, I could be wrong on that exactly, but just to kind of give you an idea of how important these two are, it's pretty important. You do need to level the other skills though, and you don't have much room to move. What I mean by that is you can't really take like true sight or a different ability here. You do need your volt surge and your storm flash as well, these other abilities over here, because they're going to be buffing you and doing specific things that you need in order to regenerate your resources. So you don't have the ability to switch skills or anything like that. It is very much locked into these expertise skills. So we have thunder cut with our scythe wheel, and then we have volt surge and storm flash. So that is going to be the way that it works. Storm flash is actually covered up by my camera here, so you can see that down here. So it is just going to be these 4 abilities right here. And again, like I said, there's not much flexibility. There is a different build where I believe they're using overdrive instead, but that's not really the build that I like to play, and I don't really like using overdrive. It's okay. Early on in season 1, that was more effective because we didn't have access to our talent points in the very, you know, first few weeks. But after we got access to our talent points, the thundercut build I thought was a lot more fun and a lot more interesting, although it does play, like I said, more into your luck, and so you do need a little bit better gear. Also, guys, don't forget that I am an affiliated partner with Blue Protocol Star Residence, so we do have an official affiliate link down below. If you guys are going to be buying any red orbs or anything like that, feel free to use our link. That would greatly support me, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. We do have a lot of cool skins and stuff like that on the rise, I'm sure. So if you guys are going to be making any purchases and you want to help support me and the channel, I would greatly appreciate it, and thank you guys so much for all the support. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about our skills and stuff like that, let's go into our stats just so we can briefly talk about it, and we'll talk about what's really important here. So of course, in season 2, honestly, maybe the most important stat we have is illusion strength. The amount of damage gain that you get when you overpower things, it says up to 20% additional damage. That doesn't seem to scale properly from my experience. I haven't actually been able to like fully prove that, but I swear it feels like you do so much more damage when you are clearing it at higher illusion strength than is recommended, much higher. And so I don't know if there's like it's bugged or something. I don't really know, but it seems pretty significant. I would say this is arguably the most important stat we have in season 2, which is part of the reason why you're going to be replacing all of your gear immediately as soon as you can, even with purples in season 2. And so after that, of course, we have our regular main stat and stuff like that, attack and agility here. Agility also got some slight buffs in season 2, so you do get a little bit more attack speed from agility, which is good, and is going to help us hit our 80% attack speed kind of requirement later on in the season. Again, this seems pretty hard to do at this point in the game, so 80% attack speed with 120 gear is probably not going to make it happen, but maybe in 140 gear we can get there. We'll have to just wait and see. So we do have haste and luck as our 2 main stats. In season 1, they were actually kind of reversed. I had haste over luck in season 1, but because of the way things are working right now in season 2, I'm kind of thinking that actually I want to go more luck haste in season 2. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the talents, and also just know that it also has something to do with the seasonal system is based off of our luck as well. So just keep in mind that all just kind of plays together, and so luck has a higher value, I feel like, than haste in season 2. But again, we are still trying to hit that 80% attack speed. If you guys are enjoying the video, leave the video a like down below, comment down below if you guys have any questions or want to talk about any theory crafting or anything. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff with you guys. I just wanted to kind of put this video out there so people have a baseline of where to go, right? But yeah, subscribe to the channel if you guys want to see more stuff like this, and we'll continue with the video. Okay, so when it comes to imagines, a lot of people say a lot of different things about this. In season 1, the way that it worked out is we would just run this right here. And I know a lot of people would say stuff like, if you have a T5 Muku Scout, it was better than the crab and things like that, especially at lower levels. However, from my own testing, I actually found that T0 and T0 of both of these imagines ended up working better. And I'm not sure if that's because I wasn't min-maxing the timing of Muku Scout enough with my flyer, which could totally be a thing. But I was always doing really great damage even in season 1 with 2 T0s, so not a ton of investment, and so in my opinion this was just what I was going to play with, and I didn't really care about using the Mugu Scout that much. But it's up to you on how much you want to test your own damage and how much you want to really push into min-maxing that. I believe theoretically this could be stronger in season 1, but in my experience I just like using this a lot better. It was a lot smoother and I didn't have to worry about the Muku Scout buffs. If you're a Muku Scout enjoyer, you know, feel free to go with that, but if you're not, just know this is perfectly fine and does, again, really good top tier damage even in season 1, so you don't have to worry about having, you know, an R5 Muku Chief or anything like that. You can easily run these 2 T0s and be perfectly fine. Now, my flyer is T1 now, but that's not something I got until more recently. And with that same conversation, switching to kind of season 2, a lot of people have been rolling Rerolla instead of the crab. And the reason for that is because mastery got nerfed. But something that you should keep in mind is that if we change this and we actually look at it, both the crab and the flyer have more value than they did in season 1. So in season 1 they had a lower haste and a lower mastery value, but again, because mastery did get nerfed for us in season 2, we are switching to this kind of build here, and then I'm still using the flyer because it still has a lot of value. And something I've been asked a lot, whether it be in live streams or in comments, has been, well, why are you using flyer? Why not just use the new purple imagine? And the reason for that is because if we just look at the haste amount here, so this gives us a 12% haste bonus, and this gives us 4,600 haste just flat. If you look at this one here, this one doesn't give you that much haste until much later on. And so if you were to go and increase this, by the time we beat 4,600, it literally has to be T5, and that's just to beat the 12% haste we were getting from here and the 4,600 flat haste. Now, you make some arguments about like having the shorter cooldown earlier on, etc., and maybe that will come out to be a little bit more, but I don't actually have access to the materials that I would need even yet. So if we go look at this, I could make probably, you know, a level 2, maybe a level 3 without any additional investments at this point in time, but I don't want to spend the red orbs to make a T5, because even if you look at T5, I feel like T5 is just barely better than what I'm currently running with my T1 flyer. And again, that's just going to come down more to like your personal preference and what you want to use your resources on. I've been trying to use all my resources. All my red orbs are going into trying to get more Rerollas, so that way in the future I can continue to build her up and get her past T0, ideally maybe T1 or T2 relatively soonish, maybe, we'll see. I do like using her. Having 2 charges is actually much more beneficial than I had realized, and it does seem like my damage has gone up pretty significantly from when I switched her and the crab. So I think she's actually been a pretty good pickup for me. I'm gonna have another video out later on where I go and I test the damage value gains. Specifically, I was gonna be looking at the damage difference and like damage gained from moving from Rerolla like T0 to T1 to T2 to T3, and again, it is gonna be a little bit scuffed. It's a little bit harder to show that exactly even on a testing dummy in the guild hall for a couple of different reasons you'll see in the video. But anyway, I want to try and give some kind of idea about how these different things affect the actual like damage gain, so that way you can kind of make a decision for yourself on whether or not it's really worth it to try and chase a higher version of them, especially if you're like me and you have to pity Rerolla every single time. If you have any questions about that, feel free to comment down below. As always, hopefully that makes sense. The lifesteal portion of Rerolla, by the way, is completely negligible, so you don't have to really worry about that. And so this is my current build and what I'm going for right now. When I can, I would like to upgrade Rerolla, but over time that's gonna just take a lot lot longer because she's really expensive to upgrade. If we go to advancing her, you can see that in order to upgrade her one time, I need 20 of these and I need 10 of these materials. And the way that you get them is by translating other materials from like season 1, for example. So it takes a lot of potions and it takes a lot of materials. I need 30 materials for this one, and so realistically I might slowly build that one and then keep building my flyer because this one does only take 20. Now I probably would get more out of Rorola in the long term, and again that's part of the reason why I'm using my rose orbs to pull for more of her, but I actually do need the haste. And something I want to clarify too is that actually I think that there's an argument that could be made that would say that the flyer might give me more value long term than Rorola, because if the doves keep changing and doing stat squishes the way that they did between season 1 and season 2, and that's going to continue going forward. What that means is that your haste that we desperately need to get that extra attack speed is going to become increasingly more valuable, just because at the end of a tier, you know, at level 80 gear or level 160 gear, just because at that point you can comfortably reach your attack speed, it doesn't mean that when the next season comes that that's going to be the case. And in fact, it's very likely to be that when the next season comes, you need more haste than ever before. And so I think, like I said, there is an argument to be made that maybe investing in the flyer is actually a better way to smooth out my overall gameplay in the foreseeable future across multiple seasons, even though Rorola might give me more damage. Right now in season 2, the way that things work with the stats is that I am not able to hit my 80% attack speed, which is really important. I would recommend everyone try and shoot for this because of the way our class works. And the big thing about that is if we go back and look at our skills, this ability right here, what you'll see is really quickly just double lightning fast EI slashes inflict attack damage on enemies at the cost of 50 blade intent, which is that resource from earlier. And then attack speed reaches 25, 50, and 80%. It deals 1, 2, 3 additional attacks. And if blade intent remains after the strike, the skill can be recast. The whole point of this is that by hitting that 80% threshold, we're going to be getting 3 additional attacks from our Thundercut, which is only going to make you know, everything a lot better for us. Not to mention, honestly guys, just legitimately, once you start hitting higher attack speeds and you go from like a slower attack speed class, it's really noticeable and it just feels really, really good. And currently, because of my attack speed on my stats in season 2, even though my gear is pretty min maxed, I would say at this point, we're not really wasting very many stats. And now a couple of lines like this I need to reroll, but we're just now getting to 100 perfection, so give me a little bit of a break here. But the most of the gear I have does have like haste luck on it, and so we do kind of have, you know, a lot of attack speed, additional purple lines and everything. We have another 2% here, etc. And so even if I had modules, which I don't, I would not be hitting the attack speed that I need for that 80%. We're currently at 62%, and so we're quite a ways behind. Now, I do expect this to change as we get like 140 gear and especially 160 gear later on in season 2. And then again, kind of the same thing in season 1, guys. So if you guys are SEA players or whatever, level 40, you're not going to be hitting 80% attack speed. Level 60 gear, you might be getting closer, especially if you have like flyer or something. But level 80 gear, you're definitely going to be hitting your 80% attack speed. And so that's going to be something that's really going to help your damage and the flow, just overall like feel of the class for sure. Okay, guys, for our talents, of course, just the full regular tree. And then this is what we're looking at for our actual build for Moonstrike. Now, there are a couple that I want to pay attention to in particular. One thing that you'll see a lot is we have a lot of these different ones that increase our blade intent. Now, our blade intent is that resource, and we want higher max value of it, so that way when we refill it using our abilities, we get more opportunities to spam it before the cooldown reset. So you do want higher blade intent. That's going to be something that it's going to be kind of a recurring theme in a lot of these talents. Is this one doubles it, for example. The other ones give you more here and there. In a lot of these talents, what you'll see is that there will be these things called charge seeds. So charge seeds, when you accumulate 20, you can cast Thundercut, consumes 15 charge seeds to trigger Storm Scythe, dealing attack damage to surrounding targets. When we use Thundercut, you'll get these additional scythes, and they'll be like really obvious from like the animation that comes out. They're like big purple scythes. and I'll put some stuff on the screen for you guys to see it. And that's what we're going to be using our charge seeds for. So that's how we're going to be doing a large portion of our damage. And like I said, this is part of the reason why you need to scale Thundercut. So specifically, okay, so right here we have casting Storm Scythe 7 times, triggers Divine Sickle. So these kind of play into each other. So this one here was talking about getting Storm Scythe from our charge seeds, and then once you get so many Storm Scythes, then you're going to trigger Divine Sickle, which is a big attack and it's guaranteed to crit. So that's part of the reason why crit isn't like super great for us. Obviously it has value elsewhere, but this is guaranteed to crit. And then also it has some more stuff based on your luck. It's going to potentially do more damage. And then down here we have access to this ability here. This talent works the same way in season 1 and 2, just like the tiniest difference, which ends up being kind of an annoying thing. In season 1, it was a percent based on your luck to refund the cast of Thundercut. And instead, in season 2, what it says is casting Thundercut grants 12 plus luck percentage times 10 points of blade intent. So instead of it being a chance of basically refunding it based on your luck, it's just going to give you a flat base percentage back every single time, and that number is based on your luck. In season 1, it felt like you could get away with, like, you know, sometimes like 30% of this was going to be good enough, and depending on how your luck actually played out, you know, maybe even a little bit less than that. Maybe sometimes I felt like I could get away with like 25% luck and then not have any issues with my rotation and the flow because I was just getting lucky over and over and over again. In season 2, it doesn't really work that way because it's a flat number based on your luck value every single time. Then you don't really have any opportunities to have good or potentially bad streaks. So overall, it does kind of smooth out the gameplay, I'm assuming, once we get high enough luck. But where I'm currently at, I'm struggling with a little bit less than 30% luck, and I think realistically I probably need to get like 35 or 40% luck to make this really feel like I don't have any issues. In season 1, you end up getting enough luck late game, especially where sometimes it felt like you didn't even need to refill your own gauge, and we'll go over that in the gameplay section in a little bit. But in season 2, it definitely has moments where I'm feeling like I definitely, you know, I should be doing everything I can to get a little bit more luck here and there. I need more luck. And there are certain times where lately I've been feeling like, you know, if I got a piece of gear that was high luck and attack speed, maybe I would just take it over having the haste at all. And yeah, we do want that 80% attack speed, but man, if you don't have enough luck in season 2, your gameplay is going to feel significantly worse. So you definitely want to, you know, try not to get too worried about that right off the bat. There are some things that you can kind of do to kind of, you know, lose a bit of damage, but kind of help your overall gameplay a little bit. And we'll talk about that again in the gameplay section. And then finally, another pretty important one is right here. When you lucky strike, a Moonblade grants 30% chance to restore 1 Thunder Sigil once per 2 seconds. Basically, this is going to allow us to actually hit our additional special ability here to regenerate a little bit of our blade intent during the course of our battle, and we don't have to worry about actually using anything to generate those Thunder Sigils. You're just going to be passively kind of generating them over time, which is again part of the reason why we can go this build instead of having to go with the overdrive. I like this a lot, but without this talent, especially early on in season 1, if you don't have this talent, it will feel significantly worse. I think maybe there's a world where you can live without this talent here if you had high enough luck, but I think it's just better just to have it both anyway, making sure that you're able to have a constant smooth gameplay even in times where maybe you don't get lucky in season 1, or maybe in season 2 you don't have enough luck. Now maybe in 160 year or something we'll have enough luck where like we can just go forever without having to refill using Moonblade, but you know, we'll have to wait and see how that kind of plays out. But yeah, this is kind of the overall way the tree works. This one over here is kind of a new talent in season 2. It's not really new, but like we just didn't take it before. That we had better stuff elsewhere. I think it's okay. It actually does provide more damage than I feel like it kind of normally suggests. And this is kind of the recommended build right now, and what I think Bidoof has up on max roll. Kind of like the way this plays out, and it's more just like spammy. I don't have to worry about quite as much going on. A lot of it feels like it's a lot more auto, like you don't have to like be thinking about it or paying attention to it, right? It's just gonna automatically build Thunder Sigil, for example, or you're gonna automatically, you know, just be getting back your resources. And that's just kind of the way the class plays in general. So I just like the way that is. Over time in season 2, we might be looking at changing the build a little more. And in season 1, guys, I don't remember exactly what our talents were, but I think you can probably just check out the recommended from like Max Roll on season 1, and that will probably be a pretty good spot. Yeah, hopefully that is a good enough explanation for our talents here. If you guys have any questions about talents, feel free to post them in the comments down below. Now, when it comes to modules, hopefully you guys have better luck than me. I have not been having very good luck with modules. I never have. These kind of RNG drops are just really rough. Now, I wish I had better options to give me more attack speed, because getting an extra 9.6 attack speed would be really, really nice. But unfortunately, I just don't have any way to reliably do that without losing a lot of damage. And in saying that, I think that the damage stack is actually probably the most important one for us. This is, like I said, the most important one. I wish I had better modules to get to the level 6. Unfortunately, I can't quite make it there yet. I'm still hopeful we'll, roll some good models at some point. But agility boost is also going to be a good one, just giving you attack damage and just straight up agility. So again, more attack speed and stuff like that. My recommendations are going to be damage stack, attack speed, agility, and elite strike. Now, elite strike is really, really good, and wouldn't necessarily put those things in that order, but that's just kind of the way that I think about them. Agility boost works on everything, and all the damage is somewhat similar to elite strike, but elite strike does give you more, and then also, right, it is more leaning into specifically those elites and those bosses. But the overall agility boost is going to help you on those non-elites, and there are some of those in dungeons, right? So, having that agility boost might give you an overall higher damage gain than elite strike, but I do think elite strike is probably my preferred, so I would probably go with these 3 if possible. But elite strike is also harder to get because, like damage stack, it doesn't just show up everywhere. And then of course, once you do hit your 80% attack speed, then you don't really need your attack speed anymore, and you can just go for agility instead. All right, so there are a couple of special interactions with our abilities here, and so let's just briefly kind of go over it. So in general, Moonstrike is what's going to be our actual special ability, and we can use 3 sigils to get our resource back, our killing intent. That's going to be pretty helpful. I'm going to go ahead and empty it right now though, so that way you can see what it kind of looks like. And that is going to be our Moonstrike. And notice how those took our sigils here, but we already had max blade intent. So much of the way this class is going to work is we're going to be just spamming our thunder cut here, just over and over and over again. And when you're doing that, you'll get those storm scythes that kind of come out, and then those are going to be what's actually controlling our divine sickle. Okay, and then we have a really important interaction here is once we get down low enough, I'm just going to spend a bunch of this, and you guys will see a bunch of our sickles and stuff. Okay, so now we're out. So what we can do is we can use our 5 ability, our storm flash ability. What that will actually do is it will change our special ability down here. Notice how it's changed right now, and so I'm going to get rid of and deplete this. And then if I use our special ability, our moon blade ability, our Moonstrike, notice how it fills up our blade intent. And so that's just kind of be the way this class plays. So what you'll see too is now we have our basic attack has changed, and this is going to be that divine sickle. So what that means is we use thundercut enough that we procced enough of the storm strikes to actually go and hit it with the enhanced basic, which is that attack right there, our divine sickle. So that's just kind of the overall like gameplay loop on how this class is going to work. You're going to be spending a lot of your blade intent, slowly just going down and down and down, and then when you get to the point where you can't really do anything anymore, you're going to be refilling with your storm strike and then using your new special attack again and filling up your meter entirely. Now, there is another interaction, right, that we talked about before, where you can gain some resource from our regular Moonstrike. But right now, we're not really generating anything, and that's because we're not using our other abilities. So when we use our scythe wheel right here, what you're going to see is that we're starting to generate our thunder sigils. And so this is part of the reason why we always want to have our scythe wheel up. This is going to be generating our thunder sigils here, and then we can be using our other abilities. So let's say in the middle of a fight, we're just kind of using our stuff and we're getting low, and I notice we're getting low, and maybe the timer on our storm flash is still pretty high, but we have 6 sigils, so we can go ahead and just use our special and get to a little bit more of our blade intent, kind of prolong the time until we need to be using storm flash in order to get this. And what will happen is as you have more attack speed, it will become easier and easier to get rid of all of your blade intent. And then you'll have to wait for this cooldown, especially in season 2, if you don't have high enough luck. So again, this is part of the reason why the luck is so important here. Something I want to mention too is that when we go to use our scythe wheel, you can actually use it and then cancel the animation by dodging backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and press 3 and then instantly dodge backwards, and we don't have to do the animation. So let's go ahead and use our energy here. So once we use our energy, oh no, I'm out. Let's just say I want to generate more sigils. I can use my 4, which is our other buffing skill. And what you'll see is that this is going to make all of this fully filled instantly. And what happens is when you generate a sigil, what it does is it generates all 6 sigils. And so you can kind of use this as a way to fill if you don't have enough blade intent, for example, to kind of last you in between when you need to be using your storm flashes. So if you need to kind of fill up and buy a little bit of time until your next storm flash, this is going to be a good option for you too. Now, the way that I'm kind of preferring right now to do my opener, kind of in my experience, so our duration on our imagines is the longest one than either of our buff abilities. And both of these abilities are going to increase the damage that we do for like a short period of time. Like one's 10 seconds, one's 12 seconds. I think I have them backwards. I think this one's 10 seconds, this one's 12 seconds. Anyway, there's some more interactions going on behind the scenes where like you're gonna get a little bit more damage from those buttons as well. Okay, so you know, this isn't gonna be like a exact science thing, but I kind of like to start my opener as I'll just kind of go with my scythe. And then what I do is I'll go ahead and use my imagines here. Because they're longer, and then just start going straight into a spam for thundercut. Once I get my divine sickle, then I use that and just kind of keep going down and keep using as many thundercuts as I can, and then using as many divine sickles as I can. Ideally you get a bunch early on, but it's just kind of, you know, is what it is. And then whenever you can, refresh your spinning scythe, that way you're just constantly regenerating. And once we're low like this, then I'm going to go ahead and just go straight into refilling with my proc ability for the Moonstrike, and then continue to go back down. And notice how we're starting to get low already, so we can just use an extra moon blade or 2 to get a little more filler, and then now we have it back. So just kind of going into this natural like spending, and then using our abilities and buffing ourselves and stuff like that. Because of the way things work out with the timing of the cooldown abilities, so our 4 and 5 ability, you can kind of just use them more or less off cooldown, and that's going to give you a pretty good experience. And again, you know, as you start to play more and more, you'll start to notice that like, oh, I need to fill more of the moon blades in so that way I don't have long periods of downtime like this. And something that you can do too is you can use your ultimate, because that will give you 6 of these thunder sigils as well. So you get 2 more extra moon blades in, and then hopefully that will get you up to the point where you can use your storm flash again and refill your blade intent. So it's kind of like I said, this like never ending game of watch the meter go down, fill it back up, watch the meter go down, fill it back up, or fill it up a little bit, watch it go back down again, and then fill it back up all the way. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Hopefully that kind of explains how the class kind of plays a little better. By the way, what's going to happen is in season 1 and season 2, more so in season 2 than in season 1, that downtime where you had that you're waiting for your storm flash and maybe you can't really do anything, as you get higher luck, you're going to have less and less downtime because you're going to be getting more constant regeneration from it. So like right now, for example, oh no, we can't really do anything, right? Let's just pretend these are on cooldown and we're not that worried about it. What you'll have is like potentially some downtime right here, but as you get more and more luck, this downtime is going to go away because you're going to constantly be generating more and more, either in season 1 from your full refund or in season 2 from just having a higher base luck in that calculation. And so, like I said, luck is going to be one of those stats that like is really, really important. And I am going to be trying to roll it on every piece of gear that I have. And then in season 2, the sigils, I've already been using sigils that are specifically for luck. So as much luck as I can get my hands on basically is more or less what I'm trying to do right now. And unfortunately, it's not quite going my way. But I mean, I don't know, when you get handed a weapon like this, you don't really, you know, spit in its face and try and go for another one. So You know, at some point I'll probably roll this and all the extra lines on all my gear into luck, but I don't have the reforged stones yet to actually manage to do that. So it's gonna be like a work in progress for me, and hopefully I can hit, you know, maybe 32% luck, because even I think 30% luck would get me in a pretty decent spot for the end of like 120 gear. So, and like I said later on, I really would like to be, honestly, I'd like to be at like 40% or higher, or maybe even 45% or higher. And I think that will really smooth out the rotation, make it so those downtimes for Stormflash aren't that big of a deal. You know, if you are taking time where you're not going to be doing your thunder cuts and you're trying to use more of your Moonstrike to kind of regenerate more and more of your blade intent, because you don't have Stormflash up, that is damage you're going to be losing. Moonstrike doesn't really do a lot of damage for us, and so that is like global cooldowns that could have been used towards getting more storm scythes out, for example, right? One sort of final thing that I want to add in here is it's more of a, you know, more of an advanced technique, so I wasn't really going to include it, but I'll go ahead and include it anyway. So we do have this talent in our tree right here that does make it so our special attacks inflict a curse upon the target, making them take more damage from us. This is an 8% debuff basically, and so that is going to be pretty beneficial. It does end up being a little bit more advanced in like how you're going to look at it though, and the reason for that being there's no real clear indication that I've ever noticed of it happening. So I'll go ahead and use it again, and you'll see like there's no you know, debuff even in the videos that I posted, you know, included in this video. It doesn't really seem like there's any obvious debuff on the enemy. Now I never really looked for it too heavily, but you could see like there's no indicator, at least on our screen here, that really shows it. So realistically, you do want to make sure that you're getting some of your Moonstrikes in, and that will, you know, benefit us greatly in terms of the damage that you'll be able to apply to the extra debuff and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, it's a little bit more of an advanced technique, and so you'll have to learn kind of your own timing and your own way to like maybe mentally track that. I think in general, you know, you could just always just use your sigils whenever they're full, and that might be a little bit rough, but that would essentially give you 2 stacks, so you get 50% of the debuff without much actual like paying attention to it and stuff. And so that might be one way that you could actually go about doing it, and then as you get more advanced, you can learn to try and min max it a little bit more. But yeah, that's how I would kind of just think about it for right now. So yeah, once you have full sigils, you could just do it twice, and then you do have a 4% additional damage debuff on the enemy for 10 seconds. And then do know that your sigils probably aren't, at least not right now, maybe with higher luck, they're probably not going to fill up every 10 seconds. So that's not going to be like a consistent debuff that you can be applying, and you'll have to kind of pay attention from there on out. So you do want to be like, you know, setting up properly, so that way it does kind of min max your like actual output damage, just, you know, through your gameplay and stuff like that. And obviously it will also help other aspects of our gameplay, which also rely on luck and stuff too, including damage from the seasonal system. So there's a lot of reasons to build luck, and luck is a pretty important stat. All right guys, well hopefully you guys learned something today, or at least you seen some cool gameplay on Moonstrike. Let me know if you guys liked the video down below. Like the video if you guys did. You know, comment on the video if there's anything that you thought I missed or something you want me to go over. I'm more than happy to have discussions and talk to you guys about any of this. This has kind of just been like how I play this class and things that I think are pretty important. There's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes, but hopefully this is a good place to kind of get you guys started in understanding how the class works and kind of what you can do to kind of min-max your own experience just a little bit. Right, again, as you dig more into the talent trees and you know, look at maybe trying to make it more into exactly what you want it to be. But this should hopefully be a lot of the highlights and things that you kind of need to know to kind of have the best experience for it. I think in most cases you could probably take pretty much everything I said in this video and then play at a pretty decently high level for this class. There's not a ton going on, and so, you know, just understanding a lot of the footnotes is going to be good enough. However, I think in a lot of cases that kind of works for a lot of classes in Blue Protocol Star Resonance. You can kind of hit some important like baseline information and then do pretty well with just that. So like I said, if you guys have any questions or you want to know anything else about it, feel free to comment down below. I'm always happy to talk to you guys there. Subscribe to the channel if you guys want to see more stuff like this. and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Have a good one.